Today we're going to be building a bomb, talking about World War II, and relating all of that to live and local for a radio station. How's that going to work? Hey everybody, welcome back to Musicom Academy, and today we are going to be talking about live and local. You've heard that phrase a million times. We're live and we're local, and that's what's going to make us successful. And that's sort of a dangerous thing, I think, to say. Now, there's people on both sides of that coin that live and local is, insurmountable. That's what you got to be. And then there's me and others who think the other way, that there's a lot more to it than just that. So I want to take you through something. I want to go through, I'm going to building a bomb, like I mentioned. We're going to talk about World War II. And then we're going to talk, a lot about live and local and what it really means. Like what you actually have to do. And, it's more about live than it actually is about local, really. Local is kind of I'd say an insignificant part of being live and local. But I'll go through that with you and explain it to you. But first I want to start out with this thing here. So see this? Now this is what I saw, and I have it on my Facebook page, and I found it really, really interesting about thinking, of how people think. Take a look at the plane and look at the dots. Those are bullet holes. During World War II, fighter planes would come back from battle with bullet holes. The Allies found that the areas that were most commonly hit by enemy fire were those red dots. And so they figured out, well, we'll strengthen those most commonly damaged parts of the planes and we'll reduce the number that get shot down. That was the thinking. However, there was a mathematician, a guy named Abraham Ward, who pointed out that perhaps there was another way to look at that data, those bullet holes. Perhaps the reason certain areas of those planes weren't covered in bullet holes was that the planes that were shot in those areas did not return. See those open areas there, where there are no bullet holes? Maybe what this guy's thinking was that if you get shot there, the plane, is going to come down. So they sat back and rethought everything, and they decided during World War II to take the planes and strengthen them, to put a lot of metal underneath so the bullets wouldn't get through in those particular areas, and all of a sudden a lot more planes started to come back. They weren't shot down. Different way of thinking with the same data. That's really important. You really have to question pretty much everything somebody tells you, especially something that's, it's been going on for 10, 20, 30 years. So those are the big ones to me. Somebody tells me, well, we've been doing this for 40 years. This is the way it's done. I immediately go to myself, whew, I don't believe you, like not even a little bit. Okay, you need to prove that to me, why it still works, or even more, why did it work at all? Because, maybe you're 100% wrong, just like this plane thing. Now, let's build a bomb. So let's say there's 100, this is going to be hypothetical here because these are not the real ingredients to build a bomb. So if somebody's going through YouTube going, oh my God, we got to take off somebody who's teaching how to make a bomb, this isn't it, okay? But a hypothetical bomb. So let's say we're going to be making a bomb and we get a hold of a formula, and this is how bomb makers have made bombs for 100 years. This is what makes a bomb, okay? It is a fuse. And then you have 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of baking soda, 1 cup of gunpowder, and you have 1 cup of sand. That's what makes a bomb, okay? So you try it and you go like, all right, well, let's try this thing. So you put them all together, you put them into a thing, and you light the fuse, and boom. Awesome. Well, let's make another one. So you throw the fuse in, and you throw the sugar in, and you go, ooh, man, I don't have enough baking soda. I don't have a whole cup. I only have about a half a cup. Well, let's try it anyway. I'm curious. So you put the half a cup of baking soda in, and you put in the gunpowder, and you put in the sand, and you light it, and bang, again, it explodes. Okay, now you're feeling pretty cool. So, all right, let's do that again, because that was awesome to see that baby blow up. So you have your fuse and you have your gunpowder and you don't have any more sand. Okay, I don't have any more sand and I'm pretty much out of baking soda because I used my last half up. All I have is sugar. All right, well, fuse, sugar, and the gunpowder. Boom, it blows up. Now you're kind of curious and you're going to yourself, I wonder what the deal of this is, because this should not have blown up. Why did it blow? All right, well, let's do it again. And this time, I'm actually going to not put the sugar in at all. I'm just going to have gunpowder and a fuse. and boom, it blows up. What do you take out of that? Now, what I take out of that is you didn't need those other things. They weren't causing the bomb to blow. Now, in radio terms, they weren't causing successful blowing up of the bomb. What caused the bomb was the fuse, which you're absolutely going to need because, well, I guess you could throw a match onto gunpowder, but I don't know if that would blow exactly or just, all over the place. But you definitely need a fuse, and clearly you need the gunpowder, and there's your bomb. As a matter of fact, that bomb blew up even bigger than the other ones. It was even stronger. So how do we relate this to radio? Well, the first thing I'm going to say to you is Howard Stern, okay? I can remember when Howard Stern was on terrestrial radio, and he was super hot, and they were syndicating him out across the country, U.S. and Canada, countries, I guess. And I remember he went into Philadelphia, and there was a guy there, I can't remember the station, I think his name was John somebody, on the maybe on MMR, which I believe is in Philly. Anyway, and he was a mainstay. He had been there forever and had big numbers, and and all of a sudden it was like over in like an instant. Stern crushes him, and you go like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But here's where you really got to get thinking about it in relationship to the bomb, and also relationship to the World War II bomber. We're on a bomb run here, evidently. What makes up a good station, a good local station? What would that be? Well, spots would be one, and the spots are local. I mean, you might have national spots, but certainly, the product is going to be sold at a local store. So you have local spots. You would have traffic on the radio station. You would have local weather. I mean, you're going to be doing weather for Philadelphia. You're going to be doing news. That would be there. There's going to be talk by, the local jocks, and they're going to be talking about, presumably local things around, around the area here and there. And they're going to be probably throwing in the time certainly back then, because people would want to know the local time, and a bunch of other local stuff. So, those would be, let's just say, the really simple ingredients, and good music, of course, if it's a music station. But that would be the good ingredients of a local radio station, okay? Spots, traffic, weather, news, jock talk that is talking about local things in the community and the time, and the jock would be doing the time, obviously. So now let's relate all that to the Stern show when he was syndicated. There would definitely be news, that would be there for sure. There would be spots, usually huge, big chunks of spots, like 8, 9, 10-minute spots. And somewhere in there would be the traffic, which would probably usually get lost, or a lot of stations actually didn't even do traffic. There would be time. Well, oh wait, no, there would not be any time. No, Stern wouldn't do the time. He's not there, he can't do the time. Doesn't know what time zone he's in. Okay, so let's scratch that out. There would be the weather, he would be doing the weather. No, let's scratch that out because Stern isn't going to be doing the weather because he's in too many different cities and too many different climates to actually do the weather. So let's scratch that out. He will be talking about local things in the community. I mean, he's going to be talking directly about things in Philadelphia or Minneapolis or Toronto or New York where he is. Oh, right, he's not. Okay, so I guess we have to scratch that out. So that would mean he's going to be scratching out probably anything that had to do with anything local in any of those cities, except maybe New York, because he's in New York and he might talk, offhandedly about New York, as he's getting to work, or what he did because he's living there. But other than that, you're not going to get a whole lot of local anything in any of those cities. So what did make Stern successful in those cities? He wasn't doing anything local, but what he was doing, he was very, very, as he always is, entertaining. He's talking about things that interest people, and it interests people on a local level, even though it's not local. Let me throw out some things that are going on right now. I mean, we're coming off of COVID. If they discovered a new deadly strain of COVID in Italy, or let's just say India, would somebody want to be knowing about that in your local town? Is it of interest? Well, yeah, of course it is. Right now, there's invasion in Ukraine. Is that of local interest? Yeah, it is. Probably not to everybody, but it's a large chunk of the population because you can see it's everywhere. In newspapers, TV, it's like nonstop. Here's another one. Remember when Trump was president or when he was running for president? he was a local interest story pretty much around the world. I mean, they were talking about him and writing about him and on the news, like every little thing he did. You could be on the ends of the earth in the Maldives. You know, if you have television there and you could pick it up, certainly YouTube, you pick it up and you'd see people talking about it, and it would be an interest to people because, you know, they were not quite sure what the guy was going to do. Interest trumps being local. So what you kind of want is something that's of interest to somebody who is local, but just being local doesn't get it. I remember when I used to listen to Stern when he was on terrestrial radio. I remember a couple times I heard him. Once I was in Philly for I think it was an NAB convention. Another time I was in New York City, and I turned him on, and you know they were kind of the same sort of thing. But one time he was talking to Trump, but Trump was single then, okay. And another time he was talking to Schwarzenegger, and Schwarzenegger was married at the time, but the conversation was sort of similar. The conversation for Trump was, well, when you were single, you know, and you're single now, what's it like, you know, how do you date all the ladies and who are you going out with and all that sort of stuff. And he asked the same thing about Schwarzenegger sort of in a different way. It was, you know, Arnold, you know, when you were single and you were a movie star, you know, in Hollywood, what was that like, you know? Did you have women throwing themselves at you? Did you have this? Did you have that? Had a lot of money? What did you do? It was incredibly interesting. You know, now, take that and contrast that with, oh, the zoo opened in Philadelphia and they got a couple new animals. They have a new parakeet cage and they have a new, you know, I don't know, a new gorilla cage. Really? I mean, you know, if you compare the two, which one of those things, when you hear someone talking about it, are you going to stay in your car another 5 minutes before you turn the key off and walk into work? Which one of those two are they going to be? And it goes true with talk too. So let's say you're watching Joe Rogan, and Rogan is talking to a member of the CIA who, you know, used to be in the CIA, and he's giving you the real reason why the US invaded Iraq, not the reason, not the weapons of mass destruction. Why did they really go into Iraq? You're going to be interested no matter where you are, probably especially in Iraq, you know, which is, you know, a long way from where Rogan is doing the show. Another one might be he had the inventor of the COVID vaccine, the guy who invented the mRNA vaccine, okay? He's on, and you know, in the midst of that conversation, I think he actually got flagged on YouTube too for doing this. They had to cut it out. But this is the inventor of the mRNA vaccine, and he's saying, yeah, the vaccine is fine. You know, down the road, you know, not quite sure 100% what it's going to do, but you know, I think it's fine. But I would never give it to anyone under the age of 10 years old. And this is the inventor of the vaccine. Now, would you think that would be of interest to anybody? Even if it was wrong, do you think it would be of interest to anybody? Okay? You know, so I think what it comes down to when you're really thinking about things for live and local is it interesting? And will it be interesting to someone who is local? I split things off into two different sections. One is an illusion, and the other is reality. And the illusion is, it's the definite sense that you are listening to a radio station that is being built and run and played for you in the city that you are in, okay? And stations can do a huge amount of illusion with that, in addition to actually doing it for real. But most stations nowadays, there's hardly any illusion at all. Now, let me give you an idea. I'm going to go back. You know, sometimes I hate doing this, but it's just a really cool example, and it's probably one that most radio stations would never do or jocks would never see in this day and age. When I first got to CKLW as a jock, you know, I'm here, I'm in Detroit, and I walked into the control room. On the wall, okay, on the wall was these huge, big, giant, you know, placards with the names of towns in and around the Detroit area. So it would say things like Grosse Pointe Farms, Bloomfield Hills, Birmingham, West Bloomfield, Ecorse, Inkster, and so on and so forth. They were the little towns within the greater Detroit area. It would go so far actually as to go down all the way down into Ohio and in Indiana. So when I would look up, there would be like, there'd probably be 45 towns names up on the wall. So 2 to 3 times an hour, we were required to do a hitline request and name one of those cities. Hitline request for Inkster. Here's one for Lorain, Ohio. Here's one for Grosse Pointe Farms. Here's one for so-and-so, and so on and so forth. So 2 to 3 times an hour, we are mentioning names that are local in the area. On the ID, top and bottom of the hour, there's, you know, it's going to be saying the Motor City. That's 2 more local. Now we're up to 5. Got the weather, Motor City weather. There's 2 more, so now we're up to 7. And there's the traffic. And the traffic is going to be mentioning local freeways and expressways, through the Detroit area. So, depending on how many you do, let's just say, let's add it in. We'll say we did another 4. So what is that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we got 11 mentions so far. And then there's the jock comments themselves when they get talking, and usually there'd be another 1 or 2 of those. And if you're doing contests and you got a contest player on the line, it wouldn't be, hey, this is John, John Jones. It'd be, hey, John Jones, where are you, John? John's out in Inkster. Hey, John, you ready to play? Yeah, okay, great. So you would hear the illusion at least, 12 to 15 times an hour that you were listening to a radio station that was in the Metro Detroit area, and it was shooting for listeners in the Metro Detroit area, and also in Ohio and also Indiana, because we would mention them too. It was like, there's no subtlety to it. It was kind of like, we want you, we know you listen there, and we're doing this for you. That's the illusion part of it. Now, let's go to the reality part. The reality part is actually really pretty simple. Really, it is, who are you shooting for and what do they care about? What's of interest to them? What entertains them? What actually makes them want to text about something that they heard on your radio station or saw on TV, because that happens all the time with the late night shows, in sports and a whole bunch of other different things. People will talk about something that is not local. They'll talk about a World Series where their local team isn't playing, and the actual game might be taking place 1,000 miles away, but they'll still have an interest in it because they are interested in baseball, and they'll talk about it. Interest, interest, interest. That is the gunpowder of the bomb for being a local radio station and being successful. You can scratch the word local, really, in the normal way of thinking, because it doesn't really matter if that interesting thing is in your city or from your city. That's a bonus if it is. But as long as it's interesting to people in your city, that's what you got to concentrate on. Can being heavily local help you win? Yes, of course it can, especially in a small market, because in a small market, usually, especially think of a small little town, there's going to be no national anything, unless there's a multiple murder in the town or something like that. Somebody's been burying bodies out in the back. Otherwise, no national anything is ever going to mention your town. So you get a little bit more free reign to talk about things that are local because you're the only one that's going to be doing it. So yes, you absolutely can be successful with live and local in a small town to some extent. Can not being local win? Yeah, of course it can. And it's pretty much the norm now. Not a whole lot of stations are local, and yet they still win because, they're, at least what they're doing, it's of interest to the people, in the local town that they're in, even though it is not local. The real question, like Stern, is can you win with a radio station that is not locally entertaining, it's not entertaining the local people, or one that is doing things that is not interesting to the local people, the local listeners? Can you win like that? I think the answer to that is a resounding no. No, you can't. There's no station that can do that. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's probably one radio station. I know of one in North Korea. I believe it has 100 share. That one does it. They talk about things that have no interest to their population, but somehow manage to survive. We are up to 516 PDs subscribed to this channel, crossing the 500 mark. I just find that awesome. Thank you all very, very much. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and we'll see if we can make 600. You never know. It's be a bit daunting, but hey, the way it's going, who knows? And also, hit the bell and, get notifications and all that usual YouTube stuff. I really appreciate that you're watching. Until the next lesson, see ya!